Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it is Sleepless with Steve, the show that needs to get educated on the Iowa Woo and their accomplishments this year. Good to be with you today, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Back after a week off. Got Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso. We got the whole crew in-house today, ready to talk about another wonderful movie released in the month of August. I got a pre-movie review rant that we'll go into here in just a few short minutes. No less, one thing I will not rant about. It's great to see you, gentlemen. Last movie we tackled was Alien Romulus, I do believe. It was just me and Joe, so it's been about 3 weeks. About 2-3 weeks since I seen you, Dom. So I'm gonna let you go first, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's the busy time of the year, which I've been saying for the past 3 months or so, but September is an uptick because you got the fall weather. Everyone's enjoying it and everyone is liking the cooler weather and all the fall leaves. Everyone's enjoying it except for me. No, I'm kidding. I got all my friends here online to talk to. These two gentlemen that I have not seen physically. When was the last time I saw you guys physically?
Your wedding?
Yeah, probably. So the next one's going to be at least with Joe.
Yes, my
party
little
bus.
grad party bus thing. Yeah.
So good times.
It is good to see you both, though. Virtually, in person. We will make in person happen soon enough. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing okay. I've been fluctuating in and out of I feel really good too. Oh my God, I'm getting tired. And tested for COVID, negative. Tested for a fever, nothing. I don't know what the hell it is. Maybe it's just the change in weather or something. But today when I got to work, I was just woozy. I felt like I was going to throw up. And then after 2 hours, I felt perfectly fine. Over the weekend, I felt like I was coming down with something. I was sweating a lot. For all I know, this might have come and passed, but I just was not feeling good. It was not how I wanted to spend the Labor Day weekend. We had family coming out of town. I really didn't get to much time to hang out with them at all. So I just kind of talked to them for a little bit over the phone. Went to an outdoor thing because I was okay. If it's outside, I keep my distance, in case if I did have COVID, but I ended up not having it. Thank God. I'm at least I'm outside and I'm keeping my distance from everybody. But yeah, it's been going good. And then yesterday, a while back when we were doing sleep, we used to do softball on Thursdays. And then I used to be with a team at where I used to work at, which was in Wien. And now I'm just doing one with friends. It's a co-ed league, and we had our first game yesterday. First 2 games because they're double headers every night. And it's been going really good, training-wise and everything. Our debut games, I told everybody, we're not going to win these games, and we didn't. But I will say this. Our second game, we lost 10-1, and while that might not seem like we did good, from the 4th inning, you only play up to 7 innings in recreational softball. From the 4th inning to the 7th inning, we didn't let in a single run. We cut people off, we forced outs, all this. We played defense really good. It was just our offense that people couldn't hit the ball far enough to get past the infield before they could throw it to first and then that person's out. It was basically me and a few other guys were the ones that had to carry the team. But we told them hey, we're doing this for fun. It's for you guys to learn the game and everything. If you guys like it, we'll do another season and you guys will have more experience and we can come back and maybe win.
Sounds like the Bears. Great defense, porous offense. Sounds like the Bears.
Let's hope it's not done this season.
Fingers crossed. I got high expectations for Sunday. I cannot wait to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Going to be a good rant coming into this show on next Wednesday, probably. We got a good show for you today, though. We're reviewing a movie called Afraid. It made, let me get the numbers right, made just about
6.8 according to Wikipedia.
That's what I was looking at too, but Wikipedia sometimes factors in the after dates. I think it made about 3 million, 3.9 million opening weekend. So there's a good chance you did not see this movie. There's a good chance you did not see this thing. This movie was released. Let's start here. This movie was released on the shittiest movie weekend of the year. And that's no lie. Look at empirical data. Two of the worst weekends to release a movie are Labor Day weekend and Super Bowl weekend. Those are the worst weekends historically on box office record that are the worst weekends to release a movie. What you got, Joe?
Is Halloween weekend another one?
Halloween weekend's not great either, but depending on where Halloween falls, the thing is Labor Day always falls on a Monday, and then you have Super Bowl, it's always on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Halloween can fluctuate a little bit.
Okay.
So that's why Halloween weekend's not one of those. The first of the weekend the first weekend of the year is generally not a great time to release movies, but you get the afterglow. If you get a movie like The Greatest Showman or something like that, you get a movie like that, kind of skews it. A movie that's been out a long time, that's family oriented, does generally well the first weekends of the year. But historically, the two shittiest weekends are Labor Day and Super Bowl weekend. And we just passed one of them. And we get this movie called Afraid with AI right in the middle of Afraid. The letters AI capitalized in the middle of it. I wasn't sure. You know what's funny? Like, it's totally irrelevant. I'm a very big title purist. when it comes to my reviews. And it's hard sometimes to distinguish whether or not a movie is stylized for the poster or it's actually the title of the movie. And I went with, because when I reviewed this movie was not screened for critics, shocker. When I reviewed this movie, it wasn't really clear what my contemporaries were using, whether it was just called Afraid or whether it was Afraid with AI capitalized. So I went with AI capitalized just because I thought it looked cool. And I also think that it's distinguishable. Yeah. And that seems to be what most are using. But it's like Manchester by the Sea. Some people capitalize in the movie. Manchester by the Sea. Some people capitalize the B and by because that's what the city does. The city capitalizes the B and by. But then there was a discrepancy, I remember on Reddit years ago, about whether or not to capitalize the B and by for the movie, as opposed to, is it referring to the city? Is it just the title? This is way too minute. I'm sorry to even bring it up. But I thought I would, because that debate is almost more interesting than anything this movie gives us. I think going back to our discussions about AI and the role it played in the SAG-AFTRA strikes and in the writer's strike and different strikes that, went out and kind of played out over the last year or so, I think it's very clear that I am completely for anything that openly criticizes AI, the dangers of it, its rapid progression, its rapid adoption. I am all for that. But I am not for terrible movies. And that is what Afraid is. As much as it likes to criticize AI. This is a weird movie to its core. And I'm interested to see what you guys have to think of it, because you bared witness to the same movie that we did, me and Catherine. This movie, first off, it's 77 minutes, I believe, without end credits. It is very short. It's shorter than Bebe's Kids, which was one of the shortest movies released into theaters over the last 30 years. It's one of the shortest movies that I can remember. And it's also one of those movies, too, that's so short, you can almost point to the moments it was cut where there's scenes missing, namely in the ending, in the last 20 minutes. You know what I'm talking about. You guys seen it. You know what I'm talking about. This is a very ill-conceived and bizarrely written movie that I would have loved to see what Chris Weitz, who's one of the co-writers on this movie, was originally going to do with it. And how he originally conceived it before whatever the hell happened And Blumhouse is not known as one of those invasive studios either, where they kind of like inhibit, creators and creative people. So I'm really interested to hear what you guys think of this. And for that, I pass it off to you, Dom.
This movie brought up a lot of salient points. If only it could put that to screen in a more engaging way, in a more, how do I say this, filmatic way. No, that makes it sound like it's not, it wasn't shot very well. Honestly, it's, the devil is in the details, and in terms of how it goes uh from moment to moment and from plot point to plot point, I was feeling a little jarred. I don't know if any of you gentlemen can agree with that. And it felt like it was really hobbling together. Albeit, this is not the first time we've done something, or we've watched something with that makes fun of AI, or not makes fun of, but rather brings up AI as a danger and its danger to society. And I'm not just talking about Terminator. I'm talking about in the past, 5 years. I don't know when Her came out, but other movies as well. I can't think of any right now, but it goes through these classic not classic plot points, but like, you know what I'm talking about? These similar beats of like, hey, AI, it's really cool at first, but then it's not, and now we're in danger. But then how it incorporates that danger, I think, and we had talked in the group chat, and Joe, I feel like, is getting ready to like rip this movie to pieces. That's the vibe I got. I don't know. I'm preempting you. I'm poisoning your well. My apologies. But for me, I thought it was, how it resolved was actually somewhat interesting. Is it great? We'll get back to that. But it was a little interesting. And dare I say, even a little fresh in how it does it. Maybe not particularly good, but it brings up some interesting and some very relatable things, particularly how and you've got classic like three levels of children, or kids, right? In this part of this family, and each one, I was like, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I have seen that happen before, and that's very scary. So in that sense, it was an interesting thought experiment, but maybe a bit of a messy movie, and that's my summary. Joe.
Oh, okay. Um, I won't rip this movie apart because I felt like I've been beaten down by the month of August and then led astray thinking like,
Oh, you
oh,
want
maybe
to
it'll get
talk?
better. Maybe it'll get better. Here's Alien Romulus. Okay, all right, we're not so bad. And then the Crow came in and just right hooked me right in the face. Um, so look, when you open the month with Borderlands for me, it's like you can only go up from there. And hey, this movie did. It went up. Um, I didn't necessarily hate this movie like I did with Borderlands, or even essentially even the Crow remake that came out last weekend. To me, this movie, I just didn't really like it. It's just like there was nothing about this that really worked for me. I think it's such a waste of one. I even tell guys this. I thought it was such a waste of a fun B movie title. Afraid, and you capitalize the AI in Afraid. I'm like, that's actually really funny and clever. John Cho, who I think is such an underrated actor, especially ever since I saw Searching. I'm always just like, man, this guy, like, I feel like no one ever gives him like the credit or spotlight he really deserves. Like, it's like, oh, I loved him, and of course I loved him in Harold and Kumar, but it's like I loved him in the Star Trek reboot movies, and then he was in Searching. I'm like, oh my god, let this be like a standout role. Like, hey Hollywood, look at me, I can be a dramatic actor.
Yeah.
And it's just like ever since then, it's like he's been on just ups and downs with whatever his career, whatever's thrown at his career. So he plays in the movie, he plays a marketing hotshot and everything for this company and everything that owns. What the hell? No, my Siri just activated right now. Oh my god. Hold on. This is scarier than the movie. What is what's this thing's called?
Aya.
Aya, thank you. he brings Aya into the home with his kids and everything. And it starts out, and I kind of see where Dom's coming from. On like, hey, like I do think like it kind of takes a unique, not unique, but a fresh approach to the AI conversation. Where like they're using this thing to order groceries, do homework, do like all this other stuff for them automatically. Um, in fact, I saw a great comparison to the Disney Channel movie. I think it's called Smart House, where like literally it's the same premise. It's a Disney Channel movie where they have a maid inside the house that is like a hologram, and she does everything for them and everything. But as the movie goes on, she like gets way too attached to the family. So a lot of people were saying this movie ripped that off, and I could definitely see that. But as much as I was like, okay, like this is cool because this is actually like what people are using AI to. I have a Amazon device in my room right now. I won't name her by her name, but I use her to order stuff on Amazon. I have this phone and I have it look up like, things like the weather and news and everything else. I ask, hey, iPhone device name, can you do something for me real quick? Call this person, yada yada, send this text. I'm not even taking the time to send a text message to like my dad or my mom. I have Siri do it. Oh crap. Okay, she did turn on. I have Siri for me and everything.
Good to know. Good to
yeah,
know.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, goth.
No, like, whenever I'm just like, I use it when I like my hands aren't free and everything. But like, again, like the AI can be helpful in those ways where it's like I'm driving, but I need to send a text. I needed to call someone and I can't reach for my phone. I use the Bluetooth in my car and everything. This movie could have been just a really cool way to like bring up all these things that we have been using AI for. And it starts out like that, and I think it's going that way, but then it just does something that Blumhouse has been doing lately, and it becomes a haunted house, and a really bad one at that too. And it gets just a little dull, and about halfway through, I'm not kidding, I started nodding off. It doesn't help that, when I went to go see this movie, I was, I wasn't in the best, like mood, and not mood, but like, I wasn't feeling the hottest. Like, I was already tired, just from how overall I've been feeling throughout the weekend and everything, that like, I'm just sitting there in my chair, I'm like, I'm about to nod off during this thing. Like, I almost not watching The Crow, and now this movie too. It really sucks because like I see where Dom's coming from, and that's why I'm not so angry at this movie. I just think how it pays off. I can definitely see what you're saying, Dom, that it is fresh. I just think how it was executing everything till the payoff was just like, man, Blumhouse, this is what you guys are doing, man. You guys keep doing this over and over again. And I feel like every time I see a Blumhouse trailer, from Night Swim to Imaginary to Five Nights at Freddy's to now this, they ride on from the producers of The Black Phone, The Purge, and Megan, which I think were 3 movies that played with the concept way better than anything else they've had this year.
It's a stellar mic drop right there. We're going to talk about the Minecraft trailer afterwards, but one of the things I was going to bring up in sort of an end rant, and I guess I'll just incorporate it here, I'll truncate it a little bit, is that Blumhouse has really coasted now, because all of the trailers for Night Swim, Five Nights at Freddy's, Imaginary, they have all, and then this one, Afraid, have all used the same movie touch points. Get Out and Black Phone, which Get Out now is what, 8 years old?
Yeah.
yeah, don't blink. The Black Phone is what? 4?
3.
2021. And they got a sequel to that coming out. Megan is now
1
year and a half.
Year and a half. Yeah. Because it came out last year in January.
Year and a half. It's funny they don't use Five Nights at Freddy's, because while that movie was not critically well received, it was a very big hit.
Yeah.
It was a very big hit. And it's funny with Blumhouse too, because like this year has not been good for them at all. And I say that as somebody who kind of enjoyed Night Swim, was way kinder to Imaginary than most. I thought Imaginary was not a bad movie. And then this movie, which I did not like. But none of these, even Night Swim and Imaginary, are neither two movies that I would write home about.
Yeah.
That I would not include on Blumhouse's final reel when all's said and done. And going back to what you said, Joe, about how you were hoping that this movie would sort of alleviate you from the month of August. I just want to say, because I know I see more movies in theaters than you gentlemen. This has been, and I combed through the last like 4 years of movies that I've watched. This has been one of the most, probably the most rotten month that I can remember. I have 4 movies that I saw this month that might make my top 10 worst list. It has been that bad. I mean, I'll run through them real quick. You got Borderlands, you got Cuckoo, you got The Crow, you have got Afraid, you've got Reagan. I saw that one. You've got Afraid. It has been a rotten month. I didn't even watch. We have not even watched the fucking SpongeBob movie yet. We have not even watched the Sandy Cheeks movie of all things yet, and I'm already
God.
pissed. This has been a rotten month at the theater. So much so that, like, I'm like crossing my fingers. I'm like, if Beetlejuice is 2.5 stars, that's a fucking win. That's a win in my book. You know, if I don't leave the theater pissed, that's a good thing. But going back and kind of bringing it into Afraid, I like the concept. I really do. I don't think this is a terrible concept. I also don't think that the cast is the problem. I think the movie is cast very well. You mentioned John Cho. I think John Cho's a wonderful actor, a guy I love seeing in movies.
He's got so much presence every damn time. That's like, God,
he does.
He really, I mean, look, say what you will. Plenty of things to say about the live action Cowboy Bebop, but he makes a good Spike Spiegel.
He did.
Like, dude, he's
that was the best part of that was one of the best parts about that live action remake.
I remember even being like 11 or 12 years old and watching one of the interview clips on Harold and Kumar, because that's where most of us were first exposed to John Cho was Harold and Kumar. And I remember watching like one of the interview clips on Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. And he said when he was offered that role in that movie, he said he was number 1 surprised, but he said number 2, he said, he's like, I didn't feel obligated, but I felt like I should take that role. Because he said one of the things I wanted to do if I ever got a career in Hollywood was break Asian stereotypes. And what better way to break Asian stereotypes than being a stoner? And
that's true.
And he said, I love that movie. And that's one of the things. It's not like he's become big and hated that movie and what it's done for him on a recognizable scale. So I've always admired John Cho. Another great movie that he did was Columbus. That was a really well done drama. Very astutely directed too. So I've always been a fan of John Cho. Catherine Waterston here is really good. I also think this is a movie that's unique in a way, this Afraid. I think it's unique because normally in these sort of settings, it's the dad that sort of casually dismisses the idea that anything's wrong. And it's the mother who starts to kind of, quote unquote, go crazy.
Yeah.
And here it's the opposite. And it's a bias because the dad works for a company that's trying to promote this AI device, this Aya device. But I thought that was interesting too. But at the same time, then you have like Lukita Maxwell, who plays the daughter Iris, who I think is really good. I think does a really good job with what she's afforded. And I think the littlest kid, Isaac Bay, excuse me. I think he does a really good job too at sort of conveying the innocence.
Yeah.
So this movie's not failed by acting. It's not at all. I think this movie is failed by whatever the hell Blumhouse did in post-production.
I
also think the last thing I will also say, Catherine and I were talking about this, like whispering about this throughout the movie. This movie at times is so badly written. I thought there was going to be a title card at the end that said this movie was entirely written by AI, because there is some baffling dialogue in this movie. Cody Leach, the film critic too, thought the same thing. There's some baffling dialogue in this movie that doesn't make any sense to me. What were you saying, Joe?
No, I hear people say the same thing. My thing was I really felt like, because you have to think back to, like, how quick movies are made today and everything, especially with Blumhouse, for how, like, low budget they are. I legit thought, I'm like, was this a movie that started production during the writer's strike and they just did not have anybody to clean this shit up while we're shooting? And they were just like, we're shooting it, we're sending it in, it's getting edited down, we're done. Like, it made me feel that way while I was watching this. I was like, there were moments, like, especially towards the second half of the movie, I'm just like, wow, this is taking a bit of a nosedive in its writing, especially. And you guys are right about, like, acting across the board. No, it was good. I had no complaints there. It's, again, just how this concept is executed, from how the story plays out, how the characters react. And by react, I'm not talking about the acting, just like what they say in order for the whole thing. I'm just like, damn, this really does feel like like some of the movies with their dialogue that we got from the, like, 08, 07 writer strike, whenever that was, where, like, Quantum of Solace, Revenge of the Fallen with Transformers or whatever, those movies came out, and, like, the dialogue in those movies was just like, what the hell is happening, along with their stories.
I do wonder if this was forced to be a horror movie.
That's a good, yeah.
If you think about how every single, like, horror jump scare sequence there is and the moments leading up to it, I'm like, this is bad. This is like the jump scares that everyone makes fun of. Like that opening jump scare of the opening scene, right? Where it's like she's looking at the monitor for the door outside, and then it literally just, like, it's like a one frame pop-up of, like, a scary face. And then
it's like, bro, I saw this shit on E-Bomb's World when I was 7, okay?
1000%. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is really, I almost, like, laughed after, like, jolting, because it was very jarring. I was like, what was that? Are you kidding me? Are you serious right now? And this movie is full of, like, really strange, like, amateurish choices like that, and then really cool ideas, like in the opening title sequence, where it's like, oh, here's a whole sequence where it's like the music, the voice, and the visuals look like they're made by AI with, like, stable diffusion and all that stuff. And it's like, that's a really cool idea. And it's like, oh, we're going to riff off of this. We're going to be like, I do wonder, I'm curious for the behind the scenes, if they actually ran it through some kind of stable diffusion or, like, some kind of AI, or if they did it manually. That's all. That would also be very interesting
and
to see how they did it.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, or, like, if they had permission to do this, I don't know, but either way,
like the opening scene,
in the opening scene, and
which is creepy, which is very unnerving.
It is creepy. And if you look at, honestly, like, if you look at, like, the littlest kid, all three of those kids, I actually related to in some way, where it's like, yeah, I can see myself, like, being caught up in something really this horrible. And but the littlest kid, where it's like, yeah, he's staring at an iPad, and it's just this AI feeding him entertainment, and it's like, dear God, this is the most horrifying. But that's more horrifying than any jump scare that I can see. It's just a blue light. And, we all do this. Every kid in the modern first world does this, where you stare at any kind of screen, television, video games, whatever. But, like, something about that young of a kid with an iPad and generative AI, right? So you're not even experiencing. It's like, at least Looney Tunes, that's culture. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's like fine art, Tom and Jerry, right? Not Hanna-Barbera. But in terms of, like, just generative AI, that's horrifying to me. That's like, that is true slop, and it's like melting your brain. And sometimes I wish it's like, did we get the wrong movie here? Was this script put in the wrong genre? Well, I'm not asking maybe something as deep as, like, a Her situation, but maybe you could explore that a little bit. I don't know. And again, this might be just my fault, where it's like, maybe I just wanted a different movie. So I don't know. But the movie they made wasn't.
I think you both brought up fair points. And Joe saying that, like, was this shot, or was this sort of cleaned up during the writer's strike? What's interesting is that, like, principal photography for this movie, I just looked this up. Principal photography for this movie began in December of 2022. Then the first trailer was released in July of this year. That's the last update. So there's a year and a half gap of this movie where you don't know when it was shot, where it was shot, things like that. But it begs the question, and I wonder, like, and this is a whole other debate, like John Cho, Catherine Waterston, they're pretty big names. I would think that they would be, you know what I mean, impacted by at least the SAG after strike. Maybe this was shot in a gap period where the actor strike was not affected. Because it's not like, I don't think this movie would have taken 7-8 months to shoot in a conventional schedule. But you bring up a good point there. And Dom, you also bring up a good point too. And how a lot of the negative reviews, and I think the movie flat out sucks beyond this, but one of the biggest negative points of this movie that's been brought up is the fact that it fails as a horror movie, which I also agree with because of the fact that, like, there's some eerie elements to it. I chalk up a lot of the eerie elements to some of the AI, montages and things that are featured in the movie. But as far as a story is concerned, I don't really see anything here that's notably thrilling, notably scary, and where you wonder, was this, and especially with the way the end is conceived. You don't want to give away the end, but I've almost softened on the ending. It's botched as hell. It clearly is missing some scenes. But at the same time, like, without giving anything away, one of the themes of the ending, at least that I took away, maybe you guys disagree, but one of the themes that I took away from the ending is that, like, there's an acceptance element of everything.
Yeah.
There's an acceptance.
That was cool.
There's a merciful, or a merciless sort of acceptance towards AI. And I'm like, that would have really stung if the ending made the least bit of sense and one of the girls didn't just emerge from the van like, where the fuck were you for the last hour? You know what I mean? Like, certain things like that. So I could agree with both of you bringing up points like that the movie, the writer's strike, point number one, Joe, and number two with you, Dom, how I think this was almost conceived as something completely far beyond a horror movie.
I hope it was. Otherwise, if this really was their whoever's vision, I'm like, man, you really could not see the forest for the trees on this one. You got really roped into the AI in a it controls a house thing and couldn't explore something deeper philosophically. But whatever, I guess that's just me. Yeah, and there's other cool concepts, like the concept of, like, hey, Silicon Valley is this empty, vapid thing that just worships technology blindly, and they don't even know what they're doing. It's like some black magic. Because at least you could say, like, Oppenheimer, where it's like they don't know what they unleashed, but they kind of do know what they unleashed. But the implications of that, Silicon Valley is way worse than that. Where it's like, yeah, we truly do not know what we're doing. We're just doing it in the pursuit of some kind of vague progress, and of course, money. And I think the twist. Execution, whatever, but the twist of, like, what they do with, like, the villains, the people who control this AI, is actually really cool. I'm like, that is a cool idea. But yeah, something in the execution here is really lacking, as we've been saying repeatedly. So yeah, I don't know.
I think also
we gotta go though.
Oh, do we? Okay, yeah.
We'll go off with your deck, Joe.
Well, yep. You'll start off, Joe, when we come back from break. I will also add to the fact that this movie, and it bugged me from the look of the trailer, but it bugged me even more from the movie. One thing that this movie does, and I will leave you with that. We'll come back here live and in living color, Sleepless with Steve. We'll wrap up our discussion on Afraid, or Afraid, however the hell you want to say it. Capital letters, I don't know. We'll come back with our review of Afraid and then talk about the Minecraft movie trailer that just dropped today. Don't go anywhere. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We do have to pay tribute over here. We do have to say a few words because this happened last Thursday, I want to say, this celebrity passing. And I could tell the story about how I found out about it, but I kind of want to put the spotlight on the man himself. Jerry Springer passed away at the age of 79 in Evanston, died in Evanston, Illinois. Very popular, sort of a outlying Chicago neighborhood. I tell you, Jerry Springer, first things first, on the Mount Rushmore of things to keep you company while you're sick as a kid, it's Jerry Springer, it's PBS Kids. I'm not going to name a specific show, but it's Jerry Springer, PBS Kids, Maury, and Price is Right. Is that not the Mount Rushmore of things that you watch when you're sick?
Yeah, that's it.
It,
Specifically, Price is Right,
Price is
because
Right
that
was for
it's
me a
so
big
hype,
time.
and it makes you feel better just by osmosis.
and I always loved like daytime television because there's ever since I was a kid there was always something fascinating about like watching TV that I could not watch because I was always in school. So it was like almost like a weird forbidden fruit kind of thing. But Jerry Springer did pass away though last week at the age of 79. He passed away of pancreatic cancer, actually. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few months ago, died very quietly again in Evansville, or in Evanston, excuse me. And obviously known for the Jerry Springer Show, the very controversial trash TV, tabloid talk show, whatever you want to call it, which I'll say this too. I've always kind of really admired Jerry Springer. I watched his show a lot as a kid, which probably explains a lot. But I've always admired him because of the fact that I feel like he reminds me like, and now especially now too that I did pick this up on eBay actually last week, and I'm about 160 pages deep into it. His book Ringmaster. I've been reading this over the last week on my brand new couch. See how it all comes full circle, and he reminds me a ton of myself though. He reminds me a lot of like sort of my ethos of like, oh, I want to try that. That sounds like fun. I'll go do that. He's got a very interesting life, and I'm reading in the book too. Like, I knew this, but he goes into a lot of great detail about how he was born during World War II. He was born in England, and he was born to parents that were Jewish and escaping the Holocaust, and they made it to America. And he talks about like coming to America, kind of getting like he's got a really good part in this book where he's talking about how kids used to pick on him and bully him because his clothes, like he had rags for clothes. And one of the neighborhood mothers told Jerry's mother as a kid that if she bought him a Yankees uniform, nobody beat him up, and then he never got beat up again once he started wearing Yankees clothes to school. But he was also too, he was a politician. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube, talking Afraid, the new Blumhouse movie, for better or for worse. I'm going to let you go, Joe. You were kind of going to make a point, but almost got cut off by the Zoom intermission. What were you going to say?
Um, okay, going off what Dom said, how they took a twist with the people in this movie and how it relates to AI. I was like, okay, that's actually like I get what you're doing with this. Again, I do think like by the end of the movie, I'm like it's not executed the best. But like I really appreciate what you guys did. What just kind of undermines it at the end of the day for me is the is the mid credit scene where I went, okay, Jason, like, dude, do you have to make a sequel to everything you guys are making nowadays, man? Like, jeez, man. Like, it just made me sit there and go, like, as I was getting up and leaving the theater, all I thought to myself was, Blumhouse, like, this year alone, I feel like you guys are, because I know Jason recently talked about how he wants to make more sequels, and he's greenlighting more sequels within Blumhouse, like Megan 2.0, the Black Phone 2, all these other movies. But like what made me just sit here as I was leaving the theater and just go, why haven't they done like Blumhouse anthology series yet? Because all I thought of was like this movie, if you would have distilled it to 30 minutes, I think you would have had something on your hand. You really like got to like the points you wanted to hit here. You probably could have had something. And you could have done the same with Night Swim and Imaginary as well, where you distill these into 30-minute short films from Blumhouse, like same quality that we see with like their other productions. And all I thought to myself was, man, a Blumhouse anthology series would kick so much ass where they do play around with concepts like this and not try to stretch them out for as long as they can, to where they just go back to the old formula of, all right, we're hitting like the last 30 minutes of this, time to make this stuff all haunted house, like a haunted house thing with distorted images and shit throughout the whole movie. It's like, all right.
It's exhausting. the potential here.
Yeah.
I will add too that with Afraid, one of the things that kind of became apparent to me too in the trailer of this movie. And I guess two things rather. One is that I don't know, did you guys see the trailer for this before it actually came out?
Not really.
No, I only saw. I mean, you sent a poster a while back, and this is like maybe even last year, and you said that's a cool idea for like a name of a movie, and I thought the same thing too. And then I never saw a trailer for this.
Yeah, the font.
Yeah.
The font, the way that AI is italicized and Afraid.
Yeah.
I remember sending that. There's two things about this movie though. Like, I think we saw the trailer once. I think I saw a trailer once in theaters. And I was like, two things. Number one, I felt like they gave too much away. I felt like they gave too much away in the trailer. It felt like they went from like the start of it to the climax. And I'm like, I feel like I know too much now. And this is why I try to get to movies later, like right before they start, to miss these trailers and the fact that I feel like I see them like 8 times before the movie actually comes out. Number one. Number two, the other thing is that, and it's a subtle pet peeve of mine, but it's a pet peeve no less. Aya operates like she has no rules.
Yeah.
Like no rules. The rules are never set for what she can do.
Yeah.
And then by like halfway through, she's tapping in onto like an ancient ass radio boombox that still plays cassettes.
Yeah, that was weird. I noticed
and
that
then,
too.
And then at the same time, I'm like, this is where you start to lose me, is when you
Yeah.
don't establish clear rules for what this thing can do. iPads, iPhones, different technology, I get that. When you start tapping into the radio and you start controlling a car's brakes, that's when you start to lose me. And that's when this started to lose me, really, was when it just felt like Aya operated with no rules.
It becomes the classic, like, Hollywood has no idea how the internet works and hackers. It's the same thing here. Hollywood has no idea how AI really works. And it's just like, because, like, you know, I thought back to, what's the sequel to Searching?
Missing.
Where, like, as much as I did like that movie, the one pet peeve I do have is they do stretch the idea of like how many screens we're gonna see things from, and it's just like, okay, like come on, like there's like a narrative going on here, like, you know, it's all told through this perspective of the camera, but then it's like when we're in her car and we're the reverse brake camera, it's like, okay, get the fuck out of here, like come on. Like I was just like, all right, like there's better ways of doing that, like, but like still, I mean that movie was just executed way better and everything to where like I can let that stuff slide. When this is like in your face and it's like happening throughout the rest of the movie from there on out, I just went, yeah, no, like this is not how this works. Like again, like you guys start off so small and like grounded with how she's invading the life and like, you know, taking over and like, taking all these responsibilities, and it's like you could really do something here, and then you can get a little extreme. But when he's doing that, and especially where like, yeah, the climax goes, like, of course too, it's like, all right, well, you know, I don't even know what to say here.
Anything to add, Don, before closing thoughts?
No, I can I just do my closing thought where
Go for it.
It's really just a matter of unfortunate potential, and I really try to avoid the trap, critiquing trap where it's like, oh yeah, let me just write my movie over this person's vision.
Yeah.
But this, whoever's vision this was, which I really want to hesitate to say was here, it seemed very narrow. I am curious, like Steve has been saying, to see how much interference there was run by Blumhouse, of all things. Blumhouse, that's unfortunate. But for me, I'll give it. Oh man, I'll give it a merciful 2 out of 4 stars. That's a very merciful 2 out of 4 stars, just for the ideas that it's stoked and the way these AI issues and ideas kind of were the most fleshed out amongst the kids, where it's like, oh, this kid's getting swatted. This kid is like going through like deep fake AI stuff and they're being bullied. I'm like, that is the sequence where the teenager and she's getting bullied. It's like, that was a cool slow motion sequence.
Yes.
There's glimmers here of like, really cool artistic direction, but it really does not come together as a package. So, I'll say a solid 2 out of 4 star movie for me here.
Joe?
Um, man, this is tough for me. I almost want to flip a coin on this and decide
I
my
get it. I get it.
rating. Because it's just like when I left the theater, this was 1.5 4 stars. The longer I've thought about it, I'm like, it's not. It's not that for me. That's like what The Crow was, and that really pissed me off. And that pissed me off, but that really made me go, "Oh, that was just bad." This was like, I didn't like it. It very much disappointed me. And maybe I keep thinking to myself, was it the disappointment of like, wow, you actually were like selling me on this initially, and then where you went just let me down, and maybe that's why I felt so harsh about it. But yeah, it's really tough for me to say when it comes to this movie, how I want to give it a star rating. Overall, I very much feel, this is also the shitty part too, I feel more with Steve, but I know Steve's going to give it a lower rating because I saw it, and I messaged him about it over the weekend. I was just like, bro, please, I need a break during this August month. Between the missed opportunities, a wild third act that I thought like almost had something going for it, but then just drops the ball. The sequel bait that they do at the end, and of course just the weird ass dialogue and just choices for the story of where it goes. I'm gonna flip a coin. Fuck it. Heads,
Oh my God,
it's
it's
two
actually
stars. For
Wow.
tails, it's 1.5. It's 1.5 out of 4 stars.
I get it. I understand. I'm not disappointed with either.
This movie is a thriller whose own intelligence is artificial at best. But I will say one of the kindest things I could say about this movie is that given all types of bad movies, and I've seen them all this month, from artistic horror and cuckoo to misguided blockbusters and Borderlands to disgraces to my childhood and Harold and the Purple Crayon to bastardized biopics such as Reagan. I've seen so many different kinds of bad movies, and you know why I consider this one the best? Is that it's over in less than an hour and 20 minutes.
Mm,
And for that, it's 1.5 out of 4 stars.
there you go.
I
Who
don't
would've
know if it's
thought?
notable enough to make my worst list this year, because there's been
It's
some
probably not going
shit.
to be for me. No.
I don't think so either. There's been some shit this year. I don't know if this is as bad, but it also goes back to the point where it's like, man, Blumhouse better hope this Megan universe or whatever they're creating with that is good.
It's
really-
not. Ugh.
There's gonna be black goo going into Megan, and they're gonna become one person.
We're already getting a Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which is predictable, but at the same time is like, when the first one, I mean, who knows? It could be like a Purge situation where the first Purge, the original
true.
Purge
Yeah.
movie was not good, but the sequels, with the exception of the first Purge, which was technically the fourth,
And a
were
prequel.
actually very well done. Anarchy and Election Year were very well done,
Yeah.
and more of what you wanted to see. So I'm going to hold out a hope in some ways for Megan, even though Megan was a good movie, versus Five Nights at Freddy's, which is what I compare the Purge franchise to. Optimistically speaking, it's 1.5 out of 4 stars. Terrible film. Fitting for the last week of August, Labor Day weekend.
Who
As the
would've
guy
thought, too?
who, as the guy who was very merciful towards Amsterdam, I would be the highest rated here. Jeez.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that movie existed. That movie was a thing.
Who would have thought too? Shyamalan would kick open August and actually give us a good movie, and then Alien finally, after all these years, came back and went, "All right, guys, I got something for you."
Dom with an Amsterdam reference. That movie's so forgotten, I almost thought it went to streaming. We reviewed that.
We did, yeah.
We'll touch on this really briefly. I didn't even know about this. I knew it was in the works, but you sent the trailer, Joe. I wanted to check it out just for the hell of it. I'm gonna say a fun fact really to start this. I have never played Minecraft in my life.
I'm not surprised by that. Not just you in particular. There's a number of people who I've known, and you'd think everyone on the planet has played it, but and among gamers, Joe, I'm gonna guess you did play. You have played it,
You
right?
fucking damn right I did.
Exactly. Look
Look
for
at him.
people, but for people who weren't even halfway, it's kind of a if it's kind of an all in or not kind of thing where it's
That's
like
the
if
impression I get.
yeah, where it's like it consumes your life for some period of time, and I'm the weird one out where I played it at other people's houses. I've watched other people play it, but I never owned it. So we've got
I
like 3 levels of engagement with this thing here, just for
My
laying that
best
down.
friend, my best friend has played it. I don't know if he still does.
Mhm.
I've watched him play it, never once played it. Never really saw the appeal. Always thought it looked ugly. Always thought it looked really like amateurish in a way. I don't.
Yeah.
There's something about it that just looking fucked up, fuck ugly to me.
what was I gonna say? To me, it's one of those games where it's like it came in during I think our high school years when we were all in high school.
Yes.
And I played it when I got to 360. That's when I first played it, and I fell in love with it. It was
A lot
a
of people
fun.
did.
It was a
Mhm.
fun time. It was a great way to play 8-player co-op with friends and everything. We just do whatever we wanted. It was Legos. It was basically playing Legos with my friends
Yeah.
almost. But the younger generation, the kids that were in elementary school when
Yes.
that game came out, that is like I said like Five Nights at Freddy's was like our thing, like kind of like like we started
Mhm.
with it, and like the longer it went on, it went to younger generation. No, Minecraft was like I always give it to like the younger generation. I'm like that's not my thing. That was your guys' thing.
100%.
So we got this new movie coming out April of 2025. Just crazy. We're already talking about 2025 movies. We're getting old, gentlemen. We are getting old.
I'm gonna be 30.
Gee, damn. Joe, you can't be 30. Stop it.
No, I am.
Stop
Yeah.
aging.
You could be younger and look like me. Anyway,
Damn.
Oof.
What the fuck,
a
Steve? That's not nice.
Minecraft movie. That's the best thing about self-deprecation. You don't offend anybody but yourself. So this movie, first off, is called a Minecraft movie, which is very cleverly titled, I would think, because it suggests it's not the definitive Minecraft movie.
Mhm.
It suggests there's potential for spin-offs. It's just a Minecraft movie, which I'm not going to lie, I kind of like the title. It's got Jason Momoa, Emma Myers, Danielle Brooks, Oscar nominee Danielle Brooks, poor woman, Jennifer Coolidge, Jack Black. Hopefully he's half as tolerable as he was in Borderlands earlier last month rather. But the trailer dropped for this movie, and I'm going to say this, like, I don't know how you could have made, and again, this is coming from somebody who's had no experience with Minecraft. I don't know how you could have made a Minecraft movie look attractive on the big screen. But I'll say this. The backgrounds look really nice. It looks like from a setting and landscape standpoint, I like the look of it. I really do. I think it's a pretty looking movie. As far as a movie that's conceived entirely with CGI, I think the backgrounds and some of the buildings look really nice. Then you talk about these fucking creatures that pop up, like this lamb thing that's used as like a punchline in the teaser trailer. Joe can probably help me out in naming what it is, but
it's a sheep. It's just a sheep.
It's a sheep. Okay. Like and the piglings and different little things that come across in this movie, those things look ugly. But the movie, I think, looks kind of pretty. At the same time, I also think this movie is pretty much a carbon copy of the Jumanji formula, which I did not like.
Yeah.
This movie kind of looks like they took the Jumanji formula and dropped it into Minecraft and hoped it would succeed.
Steve,
Yeah.
I sort of agree with you on the look of like the setting. I think they did get that right. I'm like, okay, they kind of got that right. It's not until in the trailer when there's people walking in front of everything that it just does not look right. It's just like, okay, now this doesn't look like an actual movie. This looks like a parody. This looks like an SNL skit. This looks like, and I said it in the chat, this looks like one of those IGN April Fool's Day trailers that they always got people with every year.
Yes.
And it's just like, wow, I look at all that and I'm like, nothing when there's like movies that people are like, oh, it's so obvious a soundstage and everything, but I think like sometimes like okay they do the best to hide it, that like they're obviously not in a real area. I think because just like Minecraft is like you've been there, if you played the games, you know what it looks like for all the years it's been out now, that it just really stands out more than anything. Now it's like, no, that looks fake as hell, like, oh my god.
I
Did
would. Are we gonna watch this? Do we feel like we're watching this?
Yeah.
I'm in between. I'm in between because it's like as capital G gamers, we gotta do it right. We gotta do it to them. But I just felt a sense of dread watching this, just in terms of because you ever watch something and it's like this will not be good for the culture. This
Yeah.
will not be good for. This will not be good for the dialogue. This is asking for trouble.
This
Like
is
how I felt
looking
with the
like Warner
Ghostbusters
Brothers.
reboot.
This is looking
Yeah.
like Warner Brothers Five Nights at Freddy's, where I feel like the kids who grew up with Minecraft might love all the references that are coming their way, but people like us who like we played it when it first came out and we got it, but we moved away from it as we got older, and we're just gonna look at this and go, this is just stupid.
Yeah, but even then, it's like at least the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's not fantastic, but it's a good solid movie. This one, it's like obviously it's not out yet, but like I feel like it's a faithful movie. Sorry, that's the point I was trying to make. Super Mario Brothers is a very faithful movie to its source material. Um, uh Somewhat to a fault, some might even say, but at least it was faithful. This one, it looks like it's shaping up to be like, yeah, it's like a Jumanji thing where you just ramshackle a bunch of brand new human people with no personality or like very, very base surface level personality. It's like, oh yeah, there's Jason Momoa, who's the big strong guy. There's generic lead young guy. There's person who goes, oh hell no, and that's the whole
Third
thing, right?
man.
Right, you forgot about that, right, for a second, because it's like, oh, I just deleted that from my memory. Stop it, please stop it.
And she's wearing a
But
fanny pack too, so she's gonna be the person to do that throughout the whole movie.
I don't know. I'm over Jason Momoa's. I'm sure he's a cool guy and everything, but I'm over the whole Jason Momoa fandom, specific fandom thing. So, and it's like, is this art style going to be too abstracted from its source material that people are not going to appreciate it? People who grew up with it are going to be so jaded by it by now, and it's like, at least with Mario, there are plot lines. Minecraft, and I know Minecraft has a story mode game, but in terms of like in general, the core of Minecraft is that it's so wildly different from how people play it. Some people, they play it like a war game. Some other people play it like, yeah, just a building blocks hangout game. Some people just play it as a purely social game, stuff like that. So this this seems very, they're putting too many eggs in this basket for me.
Is it going to
And
be the kind of case even with Borderlands? And I know Borderlands had more of
yeah,
a story, but is it going to be like
they could do.
Borderlands where it effectively pleases no one?
Yeah.
In that
100%.
respect.
At least Borderlands, you could have done something with that great. Like we all agreed, like there's something really cool that could have been
Oh
done
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think with
but-
every movie there is.
Yeah, and even just
Every
I
concept.
like the casting of Kate Blanchett in that movie. She gave it some oomph in that character.
I go by the concept that Mr. Corey Coleman said. I can make a movie about this damn sandal that can talk, and it could be good if I put enough time into it.
Exactly. And it's like, is there no faith like there was in Super Mario Brothers movie, where it's like, is there no faith in making something 100% animated? Right?
Dude,
Have we lost it?
honestly,
Do we need to
it's kinda
shove
true.
like, do we need leads who are live action for this?
I feel like so many studios are still scared to take that jump. Like, good for Sega. Like, the Sonic movies have worked out for them, and like, they've transitioned over to, Sonic coming to the real world. Actually, pretty good. But that's the one thing I give the Super Mario Brothers movie. I was like, thank God it just stayed animated, and it stayed in the Mushroom Kingdom. It wasn't like, oh, he's coming to our world. It's like, no, like it stayed there.
Or even,
There's
because it started and ended in New York City.
Yeah.
But even then it was like animated. Derek, just you committed to the bit. Great.
Two quick things I'll bring up about this movie before we end things. I was just browsing through like sort of the development, because I'm like, I know this has been in development for at least 10 years. And sure enough, it has. It was
Wow.
first conceptualized by Mojang in 2012. You know who was once attached to write this movie? Not direct, but write. Was Aaron and Adam Nee. And at first I'm like, why is that? Why are those brothers familiar to me? And then I look. Those were the two guys who directed The Lost City. with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum.
Oh.
Oh.
And you think about a movie that's predominantly set like in outdoors and you know what I mean, and like these lush landscapes. They were originally tapped to write the movie, but if they were to direct it, that's interesting. You know what I mean? I'm like, that would have been cool because they still really haven't they haven't really committed, I guess you would say, to their second movie. They are attached to a He-Man movie, though. I just
Huh.
saw. They are attached to a He-Man Masters of the Universe movie, for what that is worth. Do we know who directs the Minecraft movie?
No, I don't.
Uh,
I wasn't paying
there's been
attention.
so
Don't
many
look it up. Don't look it
directors.
up.
There's been so many directors. I know the guy that made It's Sunny in Philadelphia, Rob, whatever his last name is, and the guy that directed Deadpool and Wolverine was attached to it too, but I don't know who it is now.
The director of a Minecraft movie is Jared Hess. Anybody know what he did?
No.
No.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh
Ooh.
shit!
Okay.
Now, my question is, and far be it from me, somebody is I guess green to question this. What qualified him to direct this movie?
Nacho Libre. That was it.
There you go. Jack
He
Black.
did do Nacho Libre. He did what I think is, and I've still have never finished Napoleon Dynamite. I think it's fucking insufferable of a movie. I think it's a fucking insufferable movie to its core. He directed Gentlemen Broncos. He also directed a movie that I literally just remembered now. He did a movie with Kristen Wiig, Zach Galifianakis, and Owen Wilson back in the day, i.e. 8 years ago. It was called Masterminds. And that was pretty good. And I like Gentlemen Broncos too. Gentlemen Broncos had a lot of the same spirit of Napoleon Dynamite, but it was good and it was funny. And it was actually like kind of relevant in a way. I'm just like, what qualified Jared Hess to do this movie? Because normally with these kind of big budget movies, and this is Legendary Pictures behind this thing, you know, not a small studio by any means. I'm like, they usually try to go for directors that are like, if they're not names like Eli Roth was for Borderlands, they at least have had a hit in the last 5 years. Like that's why I was like shocked. Like when I saw Aaron and Adam Nee, I'm like, the Lost City directors kind of would make sense to make this movie because they had just come off a surprise hit that was really, you know what I mean, kind of like critically liked, not loved, but liked. And it made a lot of money and it showed their potential. I'm like, why Jared Hess? And you know what that screams to me? That screams like 8th, 9th director down the line.
Yeah.
No
You're like,
disrespect to Jared Hess.
We got to get this thing done with.
As the host of like the 506 most relevant movie podcast, no disrespect to being the 8th, 9th director down the line, you know? But I noticed that and I'm just like, Jared Hess is directing this. This is easily his biggest project. Easily to this day, as far as budget's concerned. But yes, to answer your earlier question, Don, we will be reviewing a Minecraft movie for the culture. For the culture.
Yeah, man.
There you go, Don.
The comments on those trailers on YouTube are just roasting.
I didn't even scroll that far. I just wanted to watch the thing and get out. It was 1:20. I wanted to get out. I didn't even read the comments. You know, probably wouldn't get the reference to it. That's our show today, though. And a really good show it was. Next week, we've got Beetlejuice. So nice, got to say it twice. The long-awaited sequel to Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton. Might even have to wax a little poetic about Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Do we remember that, gentlemen?
Why does it sound familiar?
The original sequel for Beetlejuice.
Oh, wow.
The original sequel for Beetlejuice that never got made. That was on the internet in like 2010.
Okay, I have heard about this.
The script for it was on the internet in like 2010, 2011, and never got made. I don't know if you could still find the screenplay. You probably can. But I remember reading like excerpts of the screenplay back in the day and thinking this is a really cool premise. We'll see if Beetlejuice comes close to matching that. That is our show, though, today. Looking forward to our review of that next week. Really appreciate you guys being here. Joe fighting illness, Dom fighting work fatigue, and me fighting probably a combination of the both in some ways. It is Sleepless with Steve. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, so gracious to run this show as great as he does every single week. And yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.